Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to News Tonight. Tonight, Attorney General assures no backroom deals.
No docket has come here that has been compromised in any way. No deal, no plea arrangement has been entered into.
We have more from the AG Dominic Ayine, who is dismissing allegations that his office is cutting deals with persons under investigation as part of the Operation Recover or Loot initiative.
Also tonight, dramatic courtroom twist as Evangelist Patricia Asiamah, aka Agradaa, has seen her 15-year prison sentence reduced to just 1 year. We'll hear from one of excited church pastors.
We thank God for this victory, and you know this is not a common thing. It don't barely happen. So I'm very happy. So all the church members that have been staying home and all that, they should all come to join this victory celebration.
And grave injustice tonight, Korle Klottey Municipal Assembly slams 2-month burial ban on Osu Cemetery amidst shocking revelations of grave robbing and unauthorized sale of burial plots.
All burials at Osu Cemetery are hereby put on hold in the next 2 months. This suspension applies to the general public.
We hear from some affected families as the Assembly conducts a full audit of burial permits and enhance security measures to prevent further irregularities.
Experts say renaming Kotoka International Airport could cost Ghana as much as $5 million.
I mean, conservatively, we are looking about compared to other airports that have done some rebranding, we're looking at between $2 to $5 million.
In business,
banks expect latest drop in inflation to result in further reduction in interest rates in the coming months.
In sports,
the Black Queens begin WAFCON preparations with Pink Ladies Cup in the United Arab Emirates.
And a bit later, we ask, is $5 million worth a new airport name? We'll tell you details of the processes in both local and global aviation database.
What Ghana probably would do is to notify ICAO that the name is somewhere Kotoka International Airport, but then the Accra International Airport. And even if we want to change it, it will be subject to availability of the code that we want to use.
We got the latest of these and many other stories coming up in the next 60 minutes. My name is Kenneth. Jesse.
My name is Gemma Apia.
You can be a part of this show by sending us a WhatsApp on 055 11 11 997. Details shortly.
Tonight, the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, has put out a strong statement about the oral initiative, saying no one is cutting deals or getting special treatment. He's assuring everyone that the process is transparent and fair and no one's getting a fair pass. The NDC's General Secretary Fifi Kwete had raised red flags suggesting some big names might be involved in shady deals. Take a listen to the NDC's General Secretary raising these concerns on PM Express.
Actually, what I said is that some among us are trying to cut deals. Trying to cut deals.
People still trying to cut deals?
I would think those were strategic interventions to let them know that we're hearing things, we are picking stuff, and therefore be on the lookout. I mean, because if you want to move it to the level of crystallizing it, then we'll be exposed. And the exposure will therefore become with punishment. So if that's what it is some of you are facing, think through about it. Don't let it become a reality. Somebody can approach you and try to cut a deal, but keep it at that level. But don't never want to go beyond that and to make it a crystallization. And that's the point we were making. And I'm happy that the whole system appreciates that. The president clearly has stated that, listen, people may dream about cutting their deals, but as far as he's concerned, that will not be allowed to happen.
That's the General Secretary of the governing National Democratic Congress, Fifi Kwete there. But the Attorney General, Dominic Ayine, is pushing back, saying no docket has been compromised. He was briefing the Vice President during her working visit to the Ministry of Justice.
When it comes to oral, there are issues being raised about the fact that, or accusations being raised about the fact that we are cutting deals in the oral cases. Your Excellency, oral is going very, very well. The prosecutions which are being led by my deputy and the Director of Public Prosecutions are going very, very well. However, I want to put it on record, and the National Intelligence Bureau will bear me out. No docket has come here that has been compromised in any way. no deal, no plea arrangement has been entered into with anybody who has committed an offense that comes within the ambit of the oral briefs that we have received from the NIB and are prosecuting. We have 16 dockets under review, and then we will be putting those ones through the process of critical scrutiny, so that when we notice that there are loopholes in the investigations, we'll tell the investigative authorities to bring us more evidence, as we are doing now.
Dr. Ayine also disclosed what he described as a tsunami of land compensation cases against the state, warning the claims could cost Ghana billions of cedis, a development he says is deeply concerning.
In fact, there is, for want of a better word, a tsunami of land compensation cases that are hitting the courts against the Republic, and the figures are mind-blowing. Some as much as 500 million Ghana cedis, claims being made in respect of compensation. The claimants mostly will go and duster, documents from the archives and claim that the colonial government did not pay compensation for land, and then they will take the government to court. And for some reason, they keep winning all the way, to the Supreme Court. So it is something that is very worrying, because the last time we sat down and did a calculation, on the back of the envelope, we are looking at billions of Ghana cedis in land compensation claims. So it is something that we want to bring to the attention of government. I have directed the Solicitor General to put together a brief for the President on the land compensation tsunami that we are facing.
Attorney General Dominic Ayine there.
And thankfully, my colleague Fatal Bayaga was part of that tour with the Vice President and is joining us in studio with more. Fatal, what was the reaction of the Vice President?
Can the Vice President describe the land compensation issues, in fact, raised by the Attorney General as mind-boggling, stressing the urgent need for steps to be taken to generally address this situation?
I hear you on the land cases, and how all of a sudden we are remembering the colonial times. Maybe these are things that have been in the pipeline for a long time, and people are finally frustrated. But we need to find solutions to these, because the figures are mind-boggling. So we need to find ways of dealing with them, find different ways of compensation, should that be necessary. So we rely on you to advise us on what you think is workable, what is practical, and what is enduring.
And apart from the Office of the Attorney General, the Vice President also visited the Ministries of Works and Housing, as well as the Ministry of Employment, Labour Relations and Pensions. What were the issues raised?
Yes, so Ken, the ministers Gilbert Kenneth Ajay and Rashid Pelpo raised concerns largely centered on funding constraints, calling on the Vice President to push for the allocation of adequate resources to support the implementation of their respective projects.
Sometimes people might think that the ministry, we are just here and not working. Nobody wants to sit here and not work. We all want to work. But when the funding is not there, it becomes difficult and it becomes a serious challenge. And people just say things, works and housing, we are not seeing what they are doing. We are doing a lot, but we also have challenges. So when these challenges are addressed, maybe we'll be the number one.
This is a ministry which has a very poor budgetary allocation. We have so much to do, but we have so little to accomplish what we want to do. So it is key to us. For the first time, or at least, we want this ministry to function. It cannot function if we don't have the required resources.
Let's go onto the telephone lines right now and speak to anti-corruption campaigner Edem Senanu there. But before we get to Edem, though, the Vice President also has some response for this. Fatal, what did the Vice President say to this?
Ken, so you assured the ministers of government's commitment to supporting all ministries, adding that measures will be taken to address and mitigate their financial challenges.
Thank you very much, Fatal. We can now speak to Edem Senanu, who is an anti-corruption campaigner there. Mr. Senanu, grateful for your time this evening. What do you make of the defense by the Attorney General that he is not cutting any deals with regards to the oral initiative?
Well, I think that he may want to engage the General Secretary of the party, because this is the second time that the General Secretary is raising this issue. And the kind of profile he has, it is possible he has heard something or seen something. It's unlikely that the General Secretary would be repeating this after the President has said the last time that he would ask him to clarify. So it is very much possible that the General Secretary is aware of some facts, some issues, and I think an engagement is the way to go in order not to seem to discount what is being said.
And do you think this would have ever been come to light if the General Secretary hadn't been open about it, alleging that some individuals, some bigwigs within the party, were cutting deals?
No, I don't think so. Actually, it probably is a mark of the internal democracy of the NDC, and the fact that persons don't feel muzzled, they don't feel constrained, not able to speak up.
Mr. Senanu, do I still have you on the line? We appear to have lost Adam Senanu there. He's an anti-corruption campaigner. Let's try one more time if we still have him on the line.
It is also probably an indicator that his own is when he has to deal with the case. But much more into the background checks to find out what is it that the General Secretary knows. It's possible that the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, because of the top-level hierarchy position he occupies, there are certain things happening he may not.
Unfortunately, we are finding it a bit difficult to keep connection with Adam Senanu there. He's an anti-corruption crusader there, giving us some updates there regarding the Attorney General disputing the fact that he is cutting deals, as was alleged by the NDC General Secretary, Fifi Kwete there. Gemma?
And let's go to the courts now. In a dramatic courtroom twist, Evangelist Patricia Asiamah, aka Agradaa, has seen her 15-year prison sentence reduced to just 1 year. The heavyweight champion ministry founder was convicted of defrauding followers with a money doubling scheme, but with a reduced sentence, her church members are being urged to return to service this Sunday. Agrada's husband, Pastor Evangelist Asiamah, expressed relief, saying he's the, quote, the happiest person in the world, unquote. There's been mixed reactions flooding social media over the court decision to reduce her 15-year sentence to just a year. Before we hear from her church members, take a listen to Agrada's lawyer after the court's ruling today.
Our prayer was for the conviction to be set aside, but in the wisdom of the courts, he has upheld the conviction and rather reduced the sentencing from 15 years to 1 year. I think it's a good news. And already he spent about 7 months in imprisonment, so I'm sure she'll be out very soon. There are several of them that went into jail, but eventually that doesn't change the calling on them. So he's not the first person to be jailed. We have so many prominent figures in Ghana and even outside Ghana who were once at a point in their lives were jailed.
And my colleague Hannah Odame was at the church premises and filed this report.
It will be lots of excitement at the Heavyweight Champion International Ministry on Sunday, as the pastors have declared it will be an all-white apparel Sunday to give thanks to God for the reduction of sentence from 15 years to 1 year by the Amasaman High Court for their founder and leader, Evangelist Patricia Asiamah. Now, when we got to the premises of the church Thursday, the place was empty except for 2 pastors and an administrative staff that we saw. And they are overly excited.
We thank God for this victory, and you know this is not a common thing. It don't barely happen. So we are grateful to the Almighty God. We are saying a big thanks to those who supported us and to the judge who sat on the issue. I'm very happy.
Now many people were saying, "Oh, I saw the tomb," but I will be at home once the same. Now, yeah, sorry, Tuesdays and Sundays, or most of some mobile or mobile into no.
Prophet Desmond is disputing claims that the church closed down when Evangelist Patricia Asiamah was sent to prison. He is saying that church service has been ongoing every Tuesday and every Sunday. Attributing this to the hand of God, they are extending a hand of invitation to all church members to be here present on Sunday to give thanks to God that their prayers and fasting have been heard.
So we are praying that all the church members that have been staying home and all that, they should all come. And then Sunday is going to be a Thanksgiving service.
Reporting from the Heavyweight Champion International Ministry here in Weja, I am Hannah Odame for Joy News.
Right, Hannah Odame just went to the church premise of Nana Agradaa there. Jabba, since this release or this statement came up, we've been seeing some interesting videos from Nana Agradaa. I don't know if you've seen one of them.
Yes. So Agradaa today, when she was in court, did not have nose mask on. That is quite different from her court appearances over the period. But joining us now on the phone line is lawyer for Nana Agradaa. Before we do that, let's speak to a law lecturer at UPSA, Justice Abdullahi. Thank you so much for joining us on News 9. Now, let me take your quick reaction to this decision by the court to slash down the number of years that was handed over to Agradaa last year. Abdullahi.
So I was saying that I find it so dramatic, the huge reduction from 15 years to 1 year, and then a fine of about 2,000 cedis, if my memory is correct, of the fine imposed. I'm of the opinion that, considering that in the year 2001, if our memory is correct, I think somewhere in June, Nana Agradaa had been convicted of similar offense. And so, having vowed first to sanitize the media landscape, particularly from these money doubling and rituals and all those ancillary unhealthy works that go on in the media. And then dealing with the person of Nana Agradaa who had a prior conviction, I was of the opinion that if indeed a court would find her guilty, i.e. convicted, then the sentence should be enhanced. And when we say that it should be enhanced, it means that it should be more than what was imposed on her in the previous instance. So I am at a loss as to how conviction of 1 year and 2,000 cedis is an enhancement. And as to how this serves as a deterrent to her and people who are within the same space. Because part of punishment, the objective of punishment, is to serve as a deterrent and to serve as a signpost for anyone else who is in that space or thinking of entering that industry to be on the lookout that this kind of punishment awaits you. And so,
Justice, we do know that the judge used his discretionary power. Are you saying then that he abused it? That's why we are seeing the number of years slashed down from 15 years to just 12 months?
Not at all. Because in our judicial system, particularly criminal jurisprudence, there are a lot of instances where you'd find fines being dropped from a number of years to a particular number of years. But in my entire years of legal practice, this is the highest I've seen, from 15 to 1 year. But I've never seen this before. You'd witness 30 years being dropped to 20 years, 10 years being dropped to 5 years, 50 years being dropped to 20 years. I've never come across this. I mean, it is the first time in my life. I'm not saying that by virtue of that the judge is wrong, but I'm saying that it's too dramatic.
What were you expecting?
Honestly, I wasn't expecting anything less than 3 years. If she was to even accept the appeal and reduce the sentence. Or on the other hand, if she was completely reversing the conviction and the sentence, then it would have been okay to see that happen. But to say that the conviction was correct, but the sentence was too harsh, I think that did not take into consideration adequately the previous conviction.
Justice Abdullah Kenneth here. Today, during her appearance in court, this was the very first time that she appeared in court without anything covering her face. People have started reading meanings into it. Do they have any case?
It is just normal that everybody or anyone at all will read meanings into the body language and the demeanor today. Everything was completely different. It is as though she knew what was going to happen, but we do not have any basis to conclude that something untoward had happened. And so we can simply just accept it as what it is until maybe future information reveals something to the contrary.
You've also mentioned that in your years of experience, you've never seen such a slash from 15 years to 12 months before. Do you think this sets a very interesting precedent for cases like this in the future?
Not entirely. As I said, my difficulty is the kind of message it sends to people within the same industry. Money doubling, rituals, and so forth and so forth.
Thank you very much. Justice Abdullah is a constitutional lawyer and a lecturer at UPSC.
Right, and let's turn our attention to the Osu Cemetery, where city authorities are scrambling to restore dignity to the deceased. One of the country's historic resting places has become a business hub, and the dead are the losers. Shocking revelations have emerged about illegal activities, including the exhumation of bodies and the unauthorized sale of burial spaces to unsuspecting families. Well, this has led to the suspension of all barriers at the cemetery for 2 months by the Korle Klottey Municipal Assembly. The suspension aims to restore order, ensure accountability, and protect the dignity of the deceased. Michelle Latte has more in this report.
Behind me is the Osu Cemetery, a place meant to be the resting place of the dead, but now bears clear signs of disturbance. Scattered across parts of the cemetery are signs of collapsed slabs and broken tombstones, showing clear signs of possible interference. Earlier reports indicate that some miscreants have been involved in the illegal exhumation of bodies and the sale of burial places to unsuspecting families. In response, the Korle Klottey Municipal Assembly has suspended all burials at the Osu Cemetery with immediate effect for a period of 2 months, with supervised burials for indigents of the area. Alfred Alote-Gezi is the municipal chief executive of the Korle Klottey Municipal Assembly.
All burials at the Osu Cemetery are hereby put on hold. This suspension applies to the general public. However, burial for indigents will be permitted under strictly controlled procedure.
The Assembly says it has deployed security personnel to the site to enhance monitoring and arrest those involved in the illegal activities.
The Assembly will deploy additional personnel and strengthen the on-site supervision to enhance monitoring and security arrangements at the Osu Cemetery. These measures are intended to prevent further illegal access, grave desecration, and unauthorized activities within the cemetery premises.
But some residents of Osu say the Assembly should reconsider that decision or explore alternative ways of addressing the situation.
I don't think they are wrong. Only that I think we should temper justice with mercy sometimes, because people have bodies to bury. And you telling them to put them on hold would mean that they would have to reschedule, and that would come at a cost. Whatever preparations they've made could go against them. So I'm reaching out to the municipality to take a cool. They should sit back and let's say they should readjust things and see how best they can judge all things to make sure that everything goes as planned.
It's true, it's not true. To me, it's okay.
If they want to carry out investigations into the alleged illegal exhumations, we are fine. It will be very disturbing if I return to visit the tombstone of my late mother and find out she has been exhumed.
For families with their loved ones buried here, the Assembly says their directive is to restore dignity to the final place of rest. For Joy News, Michelle Latte, Osu Cemetery.
Let's go into the telephone lines right now and speak to the convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey. We're not talking Galamsey this evening, Kenneth Ashigwe, but grateful for your time this evening. You, a few days ago, raised concerns about this issue. Are you satisfied with the directive from the municipality?
I think that this is what we need in leadership when it comes to those who serve in public service. And I think that the MC for Korle Klottey needs to be commended for the swift action that he's taking. And not only has he taken action, but he's also engaged the public. And actions are being taken to be able to resolve the challenge that we have in the Osu Cemetery. And I think this is very, very commendable.
Going forward, though, what pragmatic steps do you want them to take so that this does not recur?
Well, it is good that, we have a moratorium of 2 months. And hopefully, in that 2 months, and as much as indigents will be able to bury within some controlled guidelines, they would be able to ensure that they put systems in place that ensure that these issues of people exhuming bodies and selling those grave spaces to other people would stop. It would ensure that there will be some order in the cemetery. The issues of knowing where there is space at the cemetery and so who can bury where, can be dealt with, so that when anybody goes to the Osu Klottey office to go and make payments to be able to bury there, you are sure that the person is paying for a space that is genuine. It's not as if some grave has been desecrated and given to the person. Fortunately, there's a lot of technology available these days. So digitally map out the cemetery so that you're pretty sure of where you still have vacant land that you are able to sell. You know where everybody is buried in. You get some order in the place. The issues around security around the cemetery can be looked at. There's the health and safety issues, because those people who are exhuming the bodies, you're not too sure what kind of pathogens or what diseases are they bringing up. So all of those things will be dealt with properly, and there will be some order in the place. The interesting thing is that, especially Osu Cemetery,
right,
it's a place that is rich in heritage. You go in there and you look at the people who've been buried there and all of that. If it is dealt with well, it can become a place of pilgrimage for people who want to go and see some of our forebears who have really played, significant roles in our history. And then also for people who have buried their loved ones in there, it then can be a place that you can go, on their anniversary, and you'll be able to do that within some order.
Ken, Gemma here, is the reason for the exhumation and the unauthorized sale of burial spaces there not due to the fact that they don't have spaces at the cemetery anymore, and so this shutdown for 2 months does not actually resolve the problem because there's no space at the Osu Cemetery, and the Assembly should be looking at finding another place for burial?
So I guess that's a good point you make, but the point about it is that with this period where they have shut down, I won't say that I have gone to the whole of Osu Cemetery. They then would be able to tell how much space do they have, if there's any, and so how many more people would be able to be buried there. And then they can then take pragmatic decisions based on evidence that they've collected. because you will not be able to just tell this just standing from outside. You really need to know what is there and do that very scientifically, so that then based on that, you are then able to decide how you're going to use this place going forward. How much you have there, how long can you bury there? If you are not going to be able to do more burial, where do you go to, or which other options are available to the municipal assembly in terms of the continued use of the space?
Well, thank you very much. Kenneth Ashigbe is a convener of the Media Coalition Against Galamsey. And that brings us to business. And George Wiafe is already here with the latest. George, what's coming up in business?
Well, President John Mahama sells Ghana's economic turnaround to Zambia as he justifies push for local ownership of Ghana's natural resources and taxing more for the sector. And banks expect latest drop in inflation to result in further reduction in interest rates in the coming months. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials, Cintas, tanks, and Pepsodent, Herbal, and charcoal. Back to business on Newsnight. Now, President John Mahama has noted that Ghana's economic turnaround story shows that Africa has what it takes to manage its challenging situation. The president noted the situation shows that they can rely on their people to deal with some challenging situations. The President John Mahama said this when he addressed the Parliament of Zambia during his two-day state visit to that country.
In Ghana, we've started taking action to change our narrative. Since my return to office 1 year ago, my administration has been guided by a clear, pragmatic reset agenda that is focused on economic recovery. This approach is anchored in fiscal discipline. We have chosen execution over excuses. We have reduced the size of government to 58 ministers and deputy ministers, including regional ministers. We have restructured our debt to invest in people, not just to service loans. And this is what resetting Ghana means, and it is delivering results. Honorable members, I'm pleased to note that Ghana has made tangible progress. Inflation has declined sharply from 23.4% at the end of 2024 to 3.8% in January 2020. Currency stability has been restored, with the Ghanaian currency appreciating by 32% and ranking among the 5 best performing currencies in 2025. Successfully renegotiated our debt obligations on terms that safeguard our national sovereignty and ensure sustainability. And we're steadily exiting the IMF extended credit facility.
The president also justified Ghana's quest to get more in terms of revenue from the extractive sector, as well as local ownership.
The era where we parceled out large-scale concessions to speculators who around and flip them for huge profits must end. We have the know-how, the technology and capital are available, and indigenous companies must be encouraged to participate in the extractive and mining sectors. We must support our indigenous private sector to capture the commanding heights of our economies. We're also taking steps to domesticate the value addition of our minerals.
President John Mahama addressing the Zambian parliament as part of a state visit to that country. Now, commercial banks have indicated that the latest inflation rate decline will go a long way to reduce the cost of credit further in the coming months. January inflation rate dropped to 3.8%, the lowest since the rebasing of how we calculate inflation in the country in 2021. But there are still concerns about the impact of this on interest rates going forward. Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, Junior Watt, says the outlook for interest rates looks quite favorable.
So that cost of credit will definitely feed through the next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee. It is the inflationary pressures as assessed by the Monetary Policy Committee that will feed the new rate that we've seen, the 3.8, into the policy decisions that they make at the next meeting, which is coming in 2 months. So let's all be on the standby and keep watching and see between now and then whether we record another reduction in inflation, or even if it stays at 3.8, the kind of assessment and evaluation the Monetary Policy Committee will give to that reduction.
John Ewa is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks. The Chamber of Agribusiness is asking government to take a second look at the current excise tax on natural fruit juice. This because the 20% excise tax, according to the Chamber, threatens more than 120,000 jobs in the country and some $1 billion in export revenue. Government in 2024 rolled out the tax to check sugar consumption. Now, Chief Executive of the Chamber, Anthony Morrison, said the tax is rather hurting the economy rather than improving our situation.
Unfortunately, we are not following the rest of the global system where we are actually supporting our nutrition products. This excise duty, 40%, we call it the sugar tax. Globally, that is the technical term for it. If you look at East Africa, Nigeria, even in West Africa here, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, they have all reduced their sugar tax level so that they'll be able to buy more from farmers so that they can process. Now, the natural juice processes are different from the sweetness and also the additives, okay? So we need to get it clear. One is a nutrition-driven purpose and one that also advances the economy because it has a long value chain which cut across those who supply the seedlings, the farmers, and also the processors.
Anthony Morrison is the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Agribusiness. State-owned enterprise CDC Ghana has posted more than 30% increase in profit for last year to 130 million Ghana cedis. Board Chairman Isaac Dampton disclosed this during the annual general meeting of the company in Tema. Kwame Yanka has the rest of the story.
For 2024, the year under review, strong urban demand for affordable housing persisted, despite high financing and construction costs, leaving governments and state-owned firms central to housing delivery in a stabilizing IMF-backed economy. Board Chair and Member of Parliament for Tema East, Isaac Dampton, speaking on performance, noted that TDC Ghana Limited returned strongly to growth, posting higher sales and profit.
Total asset grew by 19.02% from 616.48 million in 2023 to 733.76 million in 2024, while shareholders' fund increased from 12.57% from 453.49 million to 510.46 million.
Managing Director of TDC Ghana Limited, Courage Nunepeku, indicated that management's strategy focuses on innovation and scale, led by the flagship Oxygen City project. Meanwhile, Housing Minister Kenneth Gilbert Ejay, who was the guest of honor at the annual general meeting, praised TDC Ghana Limited for its role in the country's housing and urban development.
TDC's role goes beyond real estate development to include promoting inclusive and affordable housing solutions.
Director General of the State Interests and Governance Authority, Professor Michael Pesa-White, lauded TDC for being one of the state's viable enterprises. For the year under review, TDC board recommended a dividend of 3 million Ghana cedis.
And then Kwame Yanka with that report. Let's turn our attention to the stock market. And three stocks saw their value go up on the Ghana Stock Exchange today. GCB was up by a peso to close at 22 Ghana cedis, 37 pesos. Guinness Ghana Breweries was also up by 49 pesos to close at 8 Ghana cedis, 39 pesos. More than 156 million shares exchange hands. And Kennedy, if you had invested on the Ghana Stock Exchange, especially in financial stocks, you've made more than 7% return on your investment. Quite good compared to other investment on the market. And Kwame, tonight, who is coming to dinner on PM Express Business Edition, we've seen the economic indicators improve significantly. Inflation, the CD. But how is that impacting on the operations of businesses? And if really this turnaround is impacting on them, why have we seen cost of goods and services go down on the market? The real impact of this turnaround on businesses, and why are we not benefiting as consumers? I'll be engaging the Chief Executive of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedua Boaje, at 9 p.m. on Joy News and all our social media channels.
That should be very
the
interesting.
Economy and the private sector.
Because the inflation has been the talk of town since it was released. So
there's even a current debate about whether it's the situation on the ground or not.
Yeah.
But inflation doesn't mean the prices are dropping. The rate of increase has slowed.
I can't afford to miss that conversation. Thank you very much, Joy, for bringing us the latest in business. It's now time for sports, and Benaya is here. Benaya, what have you got for us?
So the Black Queens of Ghana will kick off their preparations for the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations with the Pink Ladies Cup in the United Arab Emirates. The tournament will run from February 28 to March 6, 2026, providing the team with a competitive platform to fine-tune the squad and build match fitness ahead of the continental showpiece. Now, this year's Pink Ladies Cup will feature Ghana, Russia, Hong Kong, and Tanzania. Now, according to the president of the Ghana Football Association, Keto Kreku, this is part of preparations to get the Black Queens ready for the 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations set to be hosted in Morocco.
Taking our minds back, the FA invested a lot in preparing the Queens for the last WAFCON. We trips to Morocco, trips to Senegal, trips to Cote d'Ivoire, and then backed by the government again to Morocco for the pre-tournament campaign. And we intend to give the team same level of support. So that tells you the desire of this federation to see the female sport grow at the highest level. And I think that we would be in a position to offer them same level of support and to make sure that the girls are very ready for the tournament. The ambition of the nation is to win the trophy.
So that's Ket Okreku there, and that's it for sports.
Well, thank you very much, Benaya, for bringing us the latest in sports. Let's bring you more stories this evening, because renaming Ghana's main airport, Kotoka International Airport, could come with a hefty price tag of up to $5 million, experts have warned. The proposal has sparked intense debate, with some questioning the economic sense of the move amidst pressing national needs. And the government says it plans to introduce a bill to change the name to Accra International Airport, citing the need to recognize the original landowners.
Some argue the name change is a symbolic gesture that could divert resources from more pressing issues like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Others see it as an opportunity to rebrand and boost Ghana's image. But is it worth the cost? We'll hear from experts shortly. But first, the team has been digging the figures on how much similar initiatives cost other countries, and James Aveti joins me with details. James.
Yes, Gemma, so we've been looking at this renaming at some three airport. First is the St. George International Airport, which has been renamed to the Norman Y. Menata St. George International Airport, and this is in the US, done in 2001, costing the U.S. government some $850,000. The second one is also in the U.S., done in 2005, the Baltimore Washington International Airport, which has been renamed into the Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport, costing the government $4.7 million. And the final one is the McCarran International Airport, renamed into Harriet International Airport, costing the U.S. government in 2021 in Las Vegas some $7 million.
Thank you, James. And an aviation expert, Dr. Yakubu Akparibu, first explained to Joy News the processes that work around such changes in both local and global aviation databases. He spoke to me earlier on the Pulse on the Joy News channel.
What Ghana probably will do is to notify ICAO that the name is from Kotoka International Airport, but then the Accra International Airport. Now, the other code, and with this ICAO code, that is normally used for operations. So communications between pilots and air traffic controllers is normally this code that we use. So the general public normally don't use this, and most people don't even know this code. Now, the second code is the IATA code, which is normally the commercial one. That Ghana can suggest to IATA for it to be changed. Now, if the airport is changed to Accra International Airport, and Ghana still want to maintain the current code, which is ACC, which stands for Accra, then there wouldn't be any issues. And even if we want to change it, it will be subject to availability of the code that we want to use, because you don't want it to conflict with other airport codes. So if the name is changed, we only need to notify ICAO and IATA. But like I said, these codes may not necessarily change.
Former Executive Director of the Advertising Association of Ghana, Francis Dadzi, reveals the process after the passage of the bill may travel for a year, costing as much as $5 million.
I mean, conservatively, we are looking about compared to other airports that have done some rebranding, we're looking at between $2 to $5 million to be able to effectively do this. But we also have to bear in mind that it might not be a full-scale rebranding, but a name change. And therefore, we can do it in phases and then ensure that at least the cost is manageable. Because the whole quantum of rebranding goes further than just a name change. So we should look at that. And before you do any rebranding, you should have done some level of research processes to ensure that why do we want to rebrand. But here is the case that I think that is a political decision that is being made, and I'm sure a lot of stakeholder engagement have not even been done. And so looking at the issues coming up, there means that whilst Parliament passing the bill is the beginning, but there are other stages that has to go on, and it could take place between 6 to 1 year or even before the whole process is done. Because in the aviation industry, there are other regulatory authorities like the ACRA and ITA records, airline systems, ticketing platform, and all that has to be changed. And global maps and charts that are already embedded with AIA, which have to be changed to AIA. So it will take some process of time. It will not just be a walk in the park just immediately.
Let's take you to faraway Zambia, where President John Mahama is spearheading advocacy for the repatriation and reinvestment of a portion of Africa's vast foreign reserves into African financial institutions. He argues that due to colonial-era arrangements, much of the continent's reserves are held in Western financial institutions where, in many cases, they earn little or no interest.
Addressing Zambia's parliament earlier today, the president said repatriating just 30% of Africa's foreign reserves and investing them in Africa's own financial institutions would create an immense pool of capital capable of driving rapid infrastructure expansion and accelerating economic growth.
As the African Union champion of African financial institutions, I'm leading advocacy for the repatriation and investment of part of Africa's huge foreign reserves in African financial institutions. Most of our foreign reserves are by colonial construct held in Western financial institutions, and in most cases generate no interest. If 30% of all the foreign reserves of African countries were repatriated and invested in our own African financial institutions, such as the African Development Bank, it will create an immense pool of wealth that could drive rapid infrastructural and economic growth. Madam Speaker, no African country can survive in isolation. We must build regional prosperity platforms, shared manufacturing zones, integrated energy grids, and digital infrastructure. We must negotiate with one voice on minerals, trade, and climate finance. We must be united in our strategy, just not as a slogan.
Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba is joining us in faraway Lusaka, Zambia. Maxwell, what was the mood in Zambia's parliament when President Mahama addressed the House?
Well, Kenneth, the mood was similar to what we are used to in Ghana. The usual screams and shouts of approval whenever MPs had something they liked. We saw that at the National Assembly today. Now, even before his main address, President Mahama in his opening remarks said that he had once been a member of parliament before his ascension to the presidency. I was therefore accustomed, to heckling. Now, in the gallery where the minister for where the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, the Minister of Education, Aaron Edrisu, the Minister for Gender, Dr. Namu Molati, the Minister for Communications, Sam George, Felix Ofusukwachi, Government spokesperson, Joyce Bar Muktari, among others, were in the gallery. Earlier, they were part of the bilateral talks that culminated in the signing of 10 memoranda of understandings and agreements. Now, throughout the speech, MPs repeatedly applauded and made sounds of approval whenever President Mahama said something they agreed with. Ken.
Right, and Maxwell, the president also said Africa must exercise greater sovereignty over its natural resources if it is to create prosperity for its people. What did he say?
He said African countries like Ghana and Zambia are a source of critical minerals like gold, bauxite, and manganese, yet they do little to add value to their resources, and said it's about time they did that.
Right, Honorable Speaker, to achieve economic transformation, Africa must not be ashamed to leverage its comparative advantage in its natural resource endowment. Africa must exercise greater sovereignty over its natural resources if it is to create prosperity for its people. The era where we parceled out large-scale concessions to speculators who then turned around and flipped them for huge profits must end. We have the know-how, the technology and capital are available, and indigenous companies must be encouraged to participate in the extractive and mining sectors.
Maxwell, there's also talk about what the president wore on his first day in Zambia. Some Zambians are mocking our president about this traditional smoke attire that he wore when he arrived in the country. Tell us more.
Well, Gemma, it appears that the banter or maybe cultural sparring, whatever you want to call it, exists only online. Since our arrival here, relations on the ground have been very cordial and warm. People have been genuinely friendly. Personally, it was a colleague who brought the matter to my attention this morning and asked what the situation was on the ground. I told him I had not heard about it at all, and indeed, I hadn't heard it even once. Now, at the airport during the arrival of President Mahama, there was a resplendent display of culture and not even a whisper about the smoke President Mahama wore. Zambia itself prides itself in its traditions, so some Zambians I've been interacting with are wondering why some Zambians online would go off on that tangent. I asked two of them about it, and they said they believe it's simply people taking cues from the Nigeria-Namibia online banter, mostly to create some fun and entertain themselves. One Zambian.
Thank you so much, Maxwell Agbagba reporting from Zambia.
And that's it for Newsnight. But before we go, here a few of the messages you've been sending us to our WhatsApp console. This is Angelo. He says things are moving smoothly for the government, but oral may be the problem if the Attorney General fails to change his style. Francis from Accra says, to Kojopo Nkrumah and Co., can we say the inflation rate then under MPP could have been higher as they were also cooking figures? Nana Ekriamwa Boatin from Ablekuma Central says, why wouldn't the General Secretary of the NDC accuse the Attorney General of cutting deals with some officials of the erstwhile government when the AG appears more interested in media sensationalism and prosecuting defective cases in the media rather than in the appropriate fora? Those are some of the messages you've been sending to our WhatsApp console. My name is Kenneth Jesse.
And mine is Gemma Apia.
Have a good evening.